Ladies and gentlemen, now in today's video, we're going to be taking our very first look at the two brand new characters that should be arriving to the Japanese version of 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross tomorrow. So we've got a Season 3 Winged King with a spear in Guardian form, and also finally a playable version of Demon Hendrickson. And it looks like the way both of these characters have been designed is to run alongside each other. It looks like Hendrickson's unique ability buffs up King, and King makes Hendrickson viable to run, so it looks like they synergize really well together. But I think King's passive has the potential to just completely birth like this new meta in PvP that's just really weird, very interesting potentially, lots of debuffs going on. It also looks like with the update there are going to be some improvements to some of the debuff cards as well, so many characters that have very underwhelming AoE debuff cards could potentially become a lot better after this update. So yeah, I'm very curious to see where this takes us. However, this is a visual look at the brand new King. Again, he's just sitting on the shoulder of the Guardian man, looks so incredibly cool, and they also go on to showcase some of the moves. So the first move he has, the pink one, is an AoE poison card that hits all enemies at gold for 205% damage and then applies a 60% poison. Now currently, like, Helbram has a similar card but much weaker, so I hope that value on like the green version of Helbram is tuned up as well. But yeah, very underwhelming card just on face value. But again, once we talk about the unique abilities for both King and also Hendrickson, try to keep a bit of an open mind because they have some really interesting synergies that further enhance damage, block out healing, and also ult drain as well, depending on the amount of debuffs the opponent has. So again, there's a lot of additional utility being added to all of these debuffs with both of the characters. He's also got a single target nuke card, which then I think also deals damage equal to a percentage of the debuff or something like that. Again, early translated abilities, so I'm not really too sure, but basically it deals additional damage and doesn't consume the debuff by the look of it. Then finally we've got his Ultima, which deals 300% damage to all enemies and applies a 50% damage reduction on King and also an Abyss debuff, and apparently this Abyss deals 30% more damage to enemies that are debuffed, and what the Abyss also apparently does is prevent opponents being revived like Goddess Liz. But again, the early translation is a bit messy on that one, so yeah, I'm not too sure the full effects. And also in the PvP showcase, it seems to have some sort of like aftershock as well that just completely claps Lost Vein, Meliodas, and Goddess Liz. So yeah, the ultimate seems really interesting. It also leaves like this goo on the ground as well. So yeah, I'm curious to see what that does. Now, to move on to this character's Ultima, apparently if the enemy has 2 or more Poison, Electric Shock, Corrosion from Demon Meliodas, or Bleed, then the opponent cannot use any recovery skills. However, if they have 3 debuffs, also their Ultimate gauge is going to be reduced by 1 every single turn. So yeah, this seems crazy. It basically means as long as you got 3 or more debuffs on the opponent at all time, they can't use recovery skills, and they're also going to be ult drained as well. So the big problems when you're fighting like the Goddess Liz, King, and also Lost Vein Meliodas team is them just firing off ultimates and just destroying your team in pretty much a single turn. So this completely prevents it, man, which seems very interesting. So it seems like with this King, the plan is you just want as many damaging debuffs on the opponent and the biggest chance to make sure that you always have 3 of each damaging debuff on the opposing team. So yeah, I'm thinking like Blue Team and Meliodas alongside him and Hendrickson, because Hendrickson is like the perfect combo character for King. So let's move on to talk about his kit. So Green Demon Hendrickson, he basically has an AoE shock, an AoE poison, and his ultima is a weak point ultima, so a single target ult can hit very hard. But he also has this passive ability as well that increases the damage dealt by damage over time effects from all allies by 50%. So he's literally just got the absolute perfect synergy with Blue King, because Hendrickson brings in that AoE bleed, that AoE shock, so combined with King, just having these 2 units, you can get all of the 3 debuffs required to completely cancel out recovery skills and also drain ultimate every single turn. So yeah, this is just sounding like a very weird meta that I didn't expect to see, but it seems like a very interesting direction for PvP to potentially go. I think they have designed both of these characters with PvP in mind. I'm so excited to hopefully summon on the banner and and see if we can get both copies of the brand new characters tomorrow, because I think, yeah, it's just going to be a very interesting addition to the PvP meta. Some of the counterplay that I'm already foreseeing for a very heavy debuff meta is like red Zeldris or blue Zeldris, because he has the very overpowered commandment where you just move around a skill and you can get rid of all debuffs off a single character. So yeah, I think that's going to be really good in certain teams and comps there as well. There could also potentially be some sort of Arthur Gold Rush team built to counter these new characters, maybe like Lost Vein Meliodas, or maybe like the classic red Escanor mono red that we all love on Global makes a return there. But yeah, I'm a little bit curious to see like how powerful just the two of these are going to be to run together, and whether or not you're very reliant on that third unit, because you could also potentially bring in characters like Red Slater to prevent Arthur from getting off his buffs, and if you can prevent that gold buff, maybe it is easy game, easy life. But yeah, I'm just really curious about how these two are going to impact the meta, and also what is the popular character to run alongside them. Maybe Easton as well, potentially, because she does have the weak point single damage card, which hits like a freaking truck. Plus, like, eventually you'll get an ulti lock on as well, and that combined with the drain is just going to be total control. And then you also have green Easton's passive on top of everything to make all your characters hit additionally hard. So yeah, maybe like Easton is the way to go, but I'm really not too sure, man. I'm just very excited for the patch on JP tomorrow to really test out these characters. So as we can see, this is the PvP showcase now. We've got Lost Vein Meliodas, Goddess Liz, and King as the opposing team, and they're also using the blue version of Liz. I'm honestly not really too sure why they chose to go for this character, because I don't think she has any particular like distinct synergy with this team, because she does have like AoE debuffs that cancel out gaining like buffs and debuffs once upgraded. However, the thing is, like, that doesn't synergize with either King's unique ability or Hendrickson's. So yeah, I don't know if there's like something I missed in the translations, but there's nothing like on text giving a hint as to why that would be good. But here, this is the really cool thing. You can see Lost Vein Meliodas, he has his Ultima at the moment. However, at the start of the turn, he's going to be immediately drained by King's passive, which is perfect. And look at that damage on King, mate. That was absolutely mental. But the turn starts, the ult gauge immediately removes from Lost Vein Meliodas. So maybe if he lined it up right, and this is something you could do to like counterplay this team as well, if you line up your bronze cards, so when you get drained you get a merger, and then you just instantly draw into ult again, maybe that's a way to play around like King's Drain as well. So I think there are ways to deal with this character. Also here, and this is something I completely missed off earlier in the video as well when I was watching this the first time, King uses his recovery card, but it doesn't actually remove debuffs, so he still gets the heal off, but he's still suffering from all of the debuffs, and so are his team. So yeah, it looks like that's a part of the awakened ability. Actually, it doesn't fully disable the recovery skills, it just disables the removing debuffs element of it. So yeah, that was a little bit weird, a little bit interesting. Now here, I think the Liz could break out King if she wanted to, however, decides to just go for the debuffs and Hendrickson's ult. Again, Hendrickson has the same ultimate attack as both versions of Demon Meliodas, and also everybody's favourite character, Hugo, as well. This is one of the reasons that maybe you want to run like a triple AoE debuffer team, because at this point he doesn't have enough debuffs on the opposing team to actually drain ult gauge. So if Lost Vein like rushed an ult the previous turn and then stunned King, it might have been game over then. So it does look like the more I like look at this team, the more counterplay there is potentially to the setup, just by playing like very cleverly around it. But yeah, I'm really not too sure, man. It does seem like it's going to be definitely a very interesting addition to the game and very fun to play, but I don't know like how practical it is going to be able to pull off with all of the counters that already exist to removing debuffs and granting debuff immunity. But at the same time, I might be completely wrong, and it might be completely broken. You never really know how certain characters or a team is going to perform until like they're actually in the game and you can test it out and you've played like 100 or so matches. However, here, next turn, King is going for the ultimate, so he applies the debuffs on Hendrickson, fires off the ult here, and this is something to pay attention to. So the initial damage, really good chunk, kind of takes them all down by 50%, and also just fully kills off King. However, as soon as the turn starts, there's just like a massive explosion for like 100k damage on both of the characters, and they just get dropped, mate. And there's poison's just like sitting there, man, melting away. I think that's the poison, the Abyss debuff or ground or whatever it's going to be called, that actually prevents characters from reviving. But because Hendrickson's ult was used to trigger the revive previously in this match, we actually didn't get to see that kind of fully showcased and displayed there. So yeah, I'm really curious about this new king. He also, again, has these buffs on him now, which reduces the damage he takes, I think for the next turn by 50% there. And also this additional buff as well. It's a red looking one, so I'm not too sure if like that's the Abyss buff and then that's the effect for it on the you know, opposing side of the field there. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our first look at the brand new king and also demon Hendrickson. So if you did enjoy it, please do smash that like button, that'd be greatly appreciated. Aside from that, thank you very much for watching, take care, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic day.